everybody. My name is Andrew Kinch, and I'm here today to speak to you about the idea of demystifying esports. And I'm hoping to be speaking to parents and to teachers from schools to try to imagine where the benefits are in bringing in something like this into your school when people are quite tentative to pick it up on a regular basis. So a bit of background, I myself have been a gamer for 30 years. I've got a couple of young kids. I've been a high school well-being coordinator and a health and PE teacher during my career as well. And I've had the experience of competing at a high level in traditional sport and competing, let's just say, in low-level esports when they first sort of came about 20 years ago. And so why is it important to understand gaming and esports? And I think it's important to know that problematic and passionate gaming can look very, very similar depending on your perspective. And today's cognitive athlete needs a very holistic approach to performance because of the precedent that may have been set by other people. And parents and schools who understand a child's passion for esports are going to find a lot more opportunities to engage, and that's super important. So once you engage a student through esports, you're going to find that you now have this ability to have real conversations, things that are meaningful about what they find that they love about esports, but also you can have these conversations in a healthy frame of mind as well. So, defining esports. Essentially, they're video games that are designed to be played competitively, but also I think that spectatorship is a key thing that's kept in mind as well, something that's scalable to watch and where we have teams and fans and all sorts of championships that look a lot like traditional sports. And while all esports are video games, not only some video games would be considered esports. So there is a point of difference. And so why would we want to support esports at the school level? So there is an opportunity here to teach skills that are traditionally entrusted to traditional sports. And some of these skills would include performance under pressure, there's leadership aspects, the teamwork and communication that you're accustomed to seeing in a game like basketball, for example. Sportsmanship and resilience are also built through competing properly in structured esports. And it gives their gaming purpose. And that structure and purpose is super important. Otherwise, it can look like problematic gaming a lot more easily from a parent's perspective usually. So increased student engagement and student connectedness outcomes are other things that you're going to see if you start supporting gaming in a healthy way at your school. And replacing it, this is something that can replace the current gaming time. It's not meant to add more time into the schedule, just do a better job with the time that they're spending already. So if we're going to have a look at traditional sports and esports and then do some comparisons, I would like to just point out that traditional sports have been around for a long time. There's about a 5,000-year-old history of all sorts of different kind of games, and we know that a big point of difference is going to be the increase in the physical health that we see from people participating and the fact that we push the limits of human physical performance using sports. They do require you to concentrate in spite of severe fatigue, physical and mental fatigue, and they have built-in regulators to prevent overtraining, and those would namely be fatigue and injury. It does require a kind of self-discipline to get out there and train because training can be really hard work. Imagine getting up early in the morning for a run when you don't really feel like running. And we do know that overtraining in sports lead to injury and some loss of performance, but that built-in regulator of fatigue helps us to step back from overtraining. When it comes to structured esports, there's a lot of similarities and probably more similarities than differences. And it's a much easier way for people to access that drive to compete if you're not physically inclined for sports, for example. They're definitely the home of the cognitive athlete. So if you want to think of potentially what you would have considered a cognitive athlete before, it might have been a chess player. It requires a lot of self-discipline to not train when it comes to esports. And we know that overtraining when you're gaming is definitely unhealthy. It's sedentary and it can affect underlying baseline dopamine levels. And that burnout and loss of performance can definitely happen. And with the game design that exists in games today and the fact that it's super accessible and it's difficult to notice that fatigue, it is more difficult to step back. It requires a little bit of discipline that we're not accustomed to. So both traditional sports and esports offer great opportunities for personal growth and also to develop skills when done in that structured faction. A lot more so than if they're just playing for rank when they're playing from home. So the purpose of representing your school is something that brings a lot of validity to the situation. And for those who aren't accustomed to esports, there's a great video I'd like to show you about what's involved in the highest level of Rocket League. And this is based on a famous goal that happened. And there's a bit of a breakdown to explain what's involved at that level.
Held back now. Violent Panda puts it straight out. It's going to be over to Kana. It's almost in. Follow scored. The shot unanswered from Kana. All season long, it's had support from Turbo, and he won't let up now. 4 seconds left. NRG need this immediately. They've got to kick off in their favour. Kano tries to clear. It is almost there. It just has hit the floor. Violent Panda puts it a long way, and it's almost there. Justin keeps it alive. Turbo pulls it there. Bounces into the corner. NRG still around. Justin is there for the shot. Justin! Justin! This is Rocket League! They did it!
And now the moment we've seen 1,000 times. But this time, let's break down what caused everything to fall so perfectly into place to set up the goal of the tournament. In order to see how close the margins on this goal were, I'm going to be using the measurement used in the Rocket League world, called Unreal Units, which is the size of a centimeter. For reference, the Octane is 144 Unreal Units long, or 1.44 meters, which is about 4.7 feet for us Americans. Thankfully, we all use minutes and seconds to refer to time, so that'll be easy enough. So let's discover what exactly happened on this play. The purpose of this portion of the video is not to deeply analyze the decisions of the players in this sequence, but rather take a closer look at the results of those decisions. We begin shortly after kickoff, with the clock hitting 0 seconds, and the ball careening into the sidewall toward NRG's side. We see here the first event going in favor of NRG, mainly because of Garrett G's positioning, which is allowing him to make a play on the ball before K-Dop can get there to block him. Garrett lofts the ball downfield, keeping it close to the sidewall, where it has the best chance of staying alive. At this point, the players on the field are acting on pure instinct. We have the luxury of looking back and analyzing this play. Violent Panda may have been able to kill the ball with a soft touch toward the ground here, but he doesn't want to take the risk to set up an NRG attacker, so he sends the ball deep into NRG territory. Next, Justin makes a key heads-up play. His focus is to keep the ball alive, and he decides the best way to do that is to smash the ball into the curvature of the wall, rather than try to carry the ball along the wall towards a defender. It's important to note that he also manages to collect a large boost pad in the process. This is what will fuel his impending crossfield aerial. The next key decision was made by Fireburner. Realizing he's on the inside of the rotation with Garrett G, he knows he's the one that needs to challenge the ball, and quickly, before a Dignitas player can kill it, ending the game. The Dignitas player that is challenging is Turbo Pulsa. He reacts to the bounce of the ball and flies into challenge in less than 1.29 seconds. However, Fireburner has also reacted very quickly, as we see in real time. Justin has put the perfect amount of power on this bounce clear. Just a little more distance in this ball means Turbo Pulsa will get there first, and has a huge advantage in this challenge. It's important to note that he actually does have the high ground here. He tilts his car to the left to try to get as much vehicle surface area on the ball as possible. However, Fireburner is not known for his 50-50 challenges for nothing. His approach is perfect, angling his nose up under the ball as near to the center of it as possible. This means the path of least resistance is now heading in the direction Turbo has angled his car, off to his left, Fire's right. It careens away from this challenge at a speed of 148.3 kilometers per hour, or 92 miles per hour, toward the bottom of the right sidewall. This is where, if there was such a thing as luck, it would be on Energy's side in this moment. The ball strikes the curve of the wall perfectly, lofting it up towards Dignitas's goal, with enough arc to give a certain NRG superstar the little time he needs to react. If the ball hits any lower or higher, this angle becomes much more difficult to make a successful play on. Here, Justin has read the bounce of the ball, and in just 0.6 seconds of processing the projected path of the ball, he begins his flight across the field. Notice he has 44 boost. Collecting that large boost pad earlier has allowed him to get into this attacking position so quickly, with that amount of boost remaining. And just before he takes off, he gathers this last, small boost pad, giving him 56 boost to attempt his shot. His aerial flight to the ball lasts just 2.49 seconds, but it feels like an eternity, with the clock sitting at 0 for about 11 seconds now. As he reaches the ball, he uses every last bit of his boost to alter the ball's path severely, sending it down towards the goal at roughly a 54-degree angle. KDOP does not predict this angle exactly, likely thinking Justin would hit it higher and to the left of the goal based on his trajectory. But because of that last little boost pad he collected, he's able to send the ball down at a more severe angle, and with more power, causing KDOP to miss by a mere 41 Unreal units. In its downward path, the ball also nearly hits the ground, coming within 77 Unreal units of the floor, before it completely crosses the goal line.
As you can see, just like in traditional sports, there are many layers, deep nuances that are involved in reaching success at the highest level. And so I think that what people tend to worry about when it comes to esports, what parents and educators specifically worry about, is the fact that there's a bit of monkey see, monkey do happening here. What we don't want to hear is, hey mom, I'm going to go pro, and that's my excuse for playing all the time and not doing all my homework because I'm going to make money as a professional gamer. It's the same kind of issue that we see with some people who want to be pro soccer players, and they think that that's going to be their plan. They don't really need a plan B. And on that note, there's probably two different kinds of professional gamers to consider. One is the cognitive athlete, like you've seen just then playing Rocket League at the highest level. And then the other would be the streamers. Now, the Rocket League players are going to be the closest thing that you would understand to the closest thing to an athlete. Whereas a streamer is much like a busker. They're much like the rock star of the bunch. So you're an entertainer, and it's your talent and your ability to perform and entertain other people that will make you money in that career. It's also extremely difficult to make money in either of those careers. So the kids who are out there and thinking, I'm just going to go pro, don't worry about school, it's not a very intelligent approach. But if for the people who are dead set and they want to be able to do that, I want them to consider the parachute analogy. So essentially, taking a risk is like there's a big risk in jumping out of a plane, and starting a career like this is extremely risky as well in terms of how you spend your time and progress in life. And so the idea is that the parachute on your back is your business plan. And that business plan has all the ins and outs of certain milestones that you're going to need to be able to hit at certain time frames so that you don't miss out on your own life. And by the ability to be able to pull that ripcord on your parachute, call it a get out clause if you like, if you're not hitting those milestones, is how you can attempt to do something like this in a safer way. And a big part of the risk is this opportunity cost. And overindulging in gaming, whether you're trying to become a professional at anything or just playing a lot for the sake of distracting yourself in life, overindulging in gaming is going to interfere with your real life, personal growth, and responsibilities. And the perceived risk of supporting gaming in schools is probably a really important thing to address as well. And I would say that some people are tentative because they'll believe if we support scholastic esports, are we going to see harmful impacts on our students? So there's a lot of concerns about problematic play. And so as you might be aware, many professional players have made a career in esports, and they've set that unsustainable precedent that excessive play is the pathway to becoming a professional. So just being on the game all the time, and if you have enough talent, then you can make it to the top. GamerWare's purpose is to help gamers and parents and professionals figure out how to engage with gaming and esports in a healthy and sustainable way, while meeting their needs better in real life. It's very much a resilience type of program. And on the other side of that is the esports performance side. And what we need in the esports industry, starting at the grassroots level, is a much more intelligent approach that maximizes the benefits that esports can provide while minimizing the harm. And so the programs that we can run in schools are where the education is needed and where the opportunities are to teach young players how to bring that into their training and not find themselves in a situation where it's causing them harm. And that's because the price of the grind is the issue. You know, professional gamers are burning the candle from both ends. They're finding themselves in a situation where they worked super hard to get there, and at the same time they were probably overindulging in their leisure in many cases. And then once they're there, they find that playing for money is a very different scenario than what they thought it would be. And if they haven't developed the necessary skills to perform under pressure, then those careers, they burn really hot and then they fizzle out very, very quickly. And that's a problem if you haven't given yourself the opportunity to get educated. And so that burnout is something that we see in supposedly veteran gamers as early as 20 years old. So that's a problem. And so that's an example of how that passion for esports and problematic gaming can look very, very similar, because there are some problematic gamers that just happen to have a lot of talent and they got to that level. But we think there's a much better way of doing that. And the best practice that we're starting to see for training in esports is not mainstream yet, but it's definitely making some strides. And if we're teaching these fundamentals in the high school level, just like we teach them in traditional sports, then we're going to see some progress. So understanding gamers comes down to understanding their motivation. So what is their why? And I'd like to propose the idea that we've got 3 motivational buckets that we try to fill. This is borrowed from self-determination theory. So we've got competence. Competence is the need for improvement, growth, and the mastery over skills. Autonomy is your need for self-direction and having control over your choices, while relatedness is the need to connect with other people. It's being part of a community, it's belonging, and you know, working with other people like your friends and enjoying having gaming time with your mates. And so with competence, we're driven in game to potentially be somebody who completes all the challenges that a game has to offer, or just to be the master of the skills, let's say, that you saw in Rocket League. Autonomy offers opportunities for creativity or to be in control over the narrative or what's going on in the game. And then relatedness, again, will lean into that multiplayer and that sense of kinsmanship with friends. Another couple of motivators to consider, though, and I would say negative ones in some cases. Certainly escape is a negative motivator. And so if someone's playing games to escape their real life, to cope with what's going on, then that's where gaming has the most risk of becoming problematic for them. So gaming can be an escape just from boredom, but if you're struggling with anxiety or with, you know, a bunch of risk factors, family dysfunction, for example, then gaming can become problematic to a much greater degree than if you're not playing to escape. Design mechanics in games are also important, because not all games are created equal, and different games have different relationships to that dopamine response in the brain. So just as a really basic overview of this, I like to look at it as a continuum, where there's games on the engagement side of the continuum, engage on the compulsion side, and all the games in between. And so even though sports aren't video games, they're still gamified exercise. And so traditional sports do a fantastic job of filling your competence, autonomy, and relatedness buckets, or at least giving you the opportunity to do so. And so that's why they're on the engagement side of the continuum. And on the compulsion side, we see the poke machines. We're looking at gambling. We're looking at games that are out there that don't offer ways of filling those 3 buckets, but certainly motivate you to return and repeat your behaviors. So those games leaning into your car motivators, your CAR motivators, are designed for that healthier engagement. The compulsion mechanics ignore those drivers, but keep you coming back. But then there's so many games that lie somewhere in between all of these where they share elements of both. Where I think esports needs to be, I think that we need an intelligent approach. And I think that the esports industry sort of it fits the analogy of the ship that started sailing while it was being built. And in that industry, we need that culture shift that shows best practice is a much more holistic approach than the grind, and that's what's sustainable, and that's what's going to keep the industry healthy and supported. And so we need to be able to maximize those benefits that structured esports can offer and minimize the harm that comes with overplaying. And so to do that, we're going to need to respect the similarities between esports and traditional sports, and we'll definitely need to respect the differences. So there's a concept of walking the tightrope that I use a lot with gamers, because if you're playing too much, you run the risk of lowering your baseline levels of dopamine and burning out those dopamine receptors, so to speak. And when you do that, you're not only affecting your ability to enjoy your experience, but you're also affecting motivation. And it's not just the experience of the game, it applies to anything. It's not selective. So walking the tightrope basically means that you're not playing so much that you're suffering from dopamine burnout, but you're playing enough that you are able to progress and get better and stay motivated and focused when you do play. But how you spend that time is super important, otherwise you won't progress quickly enough. So for these types of gamers, I would say step one is clarity of intent. And because there's a lot of young gamers who really, really love esports, but they need to be honest with themselves. When they say that they want to get good, or they say that they want to go pro or something like that, they need to know, are they actually just there to overindulge and avoid and dodge life under the guise that they're going to be pro esports players, or do they actually want to improve their performance on and off screen and follow their passion? Because those are not the same thing. So competitive gamers that are claiming that they want to go pro need to put in the work everywhere, or they need to admit that they're actually just seeking shortcuts. Step two is a perspective shift for those players. So no matter what the type of competition, performance needs balance. Traditional sports too. So to do that, you need two different kinds of self-discipline. So in traditional sports, I think that you need to find the drive to train when it becomes difficult. So when it's harder to overtrain because of physical fatigue, you need to find that drive to do something difficult, like get up for a 6 a.m. run. In esports, your self-discipline is different. You have to have it so that you don't overtrain and suffer that dopamine burnout, because it's harder to feel that fatigue. And it's harder to resist playing because of all the motivational factors involved in game design. Okay, so different kinds of self-discipline. So how to make esports sustainable, and this is where you come in. I think that a safe pathway to compete is very achievable, and we want to embrace the competition without the overindulgence. We need to be able to keep the best elements that traditional sport pathways have shown us, so that we can help esports players set reasonable expectations for their success, potentially see what their place is in the pecking order on a regional or state or national scale, and teach these essential skills explicitly and implicitly. So high school esports leagues, academies, and local tournaments offer a unique opportunity to educate young gamers on how to perform better on and off screen. And these types of structured competitions are just going to lead to better experiences that go beyond the game itself.
Once again, they're going to take a shot. There Bailey has the pressure and Mudnoodle comes in. 90 seconds to go and it could be over. Mudnoodle with such a clean shot. Taking to the skies, gets it over the top of Purell. He has the shot and that is 3-0 with a minute to go. Unley, the game is in their hands. Josh Ortex is playing like the MVP. That could be the save that really puts the nail in the coffin. There's the shot as well. He's falling through. 4-1 is your score. They come from South Australia in Unley High School. This is them at MEO on the stage, and they get it done. From tournament favorites to champions, give it up to Unley High.
We certainly think that there's a case to have a social gaming club at your school, and some of the outcomes that we're after here are creating an inclusive gaming culture where there's a variety of competitive or non-competitive games that are offered, and we want to be able to support the neurodiverse or socially anxious students at your school who are probably dealing with some barriers to engaging with their peers, and using gaming as a common interest is a great way to engage in a safe space. We know that there's a lot of student leadership opportunities that pop up when you have an esports program, and the ability to compete against other schools can increase student connectedness by quite a bit as well. So probably the best thing about having a gaming club is that you've now got a platform to make a positive impact on students who may or may not be playing games too much, and then giving them that structure and being able to take control of the narrative in this case at school means that you're going to get a lot of buy-in from students. It turns out that there's some research in this area as well that was recently done here by Australian researchers, and school esports programs definitely have the potential to bring about this positive psychological development or health and behavior change with the right kinds of structure and culture, we believe. So, what can we do right now? So speaking to parents first, here's some tips for the household. Get involved. Get coached by your kids in the games that they're playing and try to understand not only their motivation to play, but understand the nuance of the game itself, the way the game flows. Because if you can be a teammate and not an opponent and take a real interest, you're going to get a lot healthier interactions, a lot more healthy interactions with your kids around gaming. I think it's really wise to try and support social gaming programs and esports clubs, or even just having social gaming interactions at home that you host with the little LAN party at home. So being able to plan session with friends, bring them over, have a couple hours of gaming together in the same room is very different and a very high quality experience. And then while they're there and after they've had some food, you can pivot to something else. Might be bike ride, might be playing some sports or going to the movies or something. And I think it's important that you can spend some time talking to your kids and making a plan. If you've got somebody who is super passionate about esports and thinks they're interested in pursuing it, you've got to find out what they really want out of it. Is it fame and glory, or is it like the journey of progress, which we find through traditional sports? And if you're supporting the structured type of play instead of the unstructured, then this kind of plan is more likely to be successful, but also less likely to cause any harm. So how to get a school involved with a social gaming club has a few steps. First, I want you to find your teacher champion. It's very likely that in this day and age, you're going to have a teacher at your school who plays video games. And it doesn't have to be someone who does, but it certainly helps. But anybody who's really keen on providing a fun and engaging experience for their students could be your teacher champion. Next, I would be looking for a lunchtime space for once or twice a week where they can come together as a group and enjoy this time together. And it might be a computer lab or it might not. It depends on your situation with IT. So that being said, involve your IT manager for support. You'll find that having an IT manager as a backup is going to be really helpful in terms of the variety and flexibility that you can bring to your gaming club. You should survey your students and gather data before you get started. Find out what games they're playing. Find out if they've got particular bits of hardware or Nintendo Switches or things like that that are great for social gaming, shoulder to shoulder in a classroom. And find out what kinds of games they're interested in competing in if you want to start an esports program. And then you can make a case for your gaming club and esports program for your school administration and for your parents using Meta's teacher resource pack that you'll find on the website. And then finally, the last step would be entering the competitions and using the gaming club as an opportunity to train, to learn healthy habits, and improve that student connectedness and engagement that we're all after. Finally, please feel free to contact us with any questions about getting started or any kind of content that you might need for your gaming club, any resources. And be sure to download that free teacher resource that you'll find on the Meta Esports website to get started with your gaming club and esports program. Thanks very much. I've been Andrew Kinch, and we'll see you out there.